Let's come back to the seed oil piece. This is an area you've really targeted with your work. You mentioned the formaldehyde aldehydes. Let's take it from the top, though, and talk about the processing that goes into these, and then we'll get into some of the other nuances of why they destroy our health.
Well, the first thing I think people need to realize is that well, most of the seed oils that are in our food today, we never ate until about 1890 when they developed the stainless steel roller press to get these oils out of the seeds. Otherwise, you just can't do it. Now, there are a few seeds that were in human consumption, where their oils were in human consumption, because you can remove them with a stone press. Yeah, I remember seeing a press like this in Iran with the donkeys pulling the press around. So one was sesame, and that was in the Asian countries. They had sesame, and they also had rapeseed, which was an oily version of canola. But these oils were eaten in the context of a diet that had animal fats, duck, pork fat, and coconut oil or palm oil. So they were small amounts eaten in the context of a diet that had plenty of saturated fat, which you have to understand is saturated fat is not the villain. It's stable, it's protective, it helps you use the polyunsaturated fatty acids properly. And people, you see these things like, well, it's like clogging your pipes, right? If you pour uh, lard down the sink, it'll clog the pipes, okay? But your sink is normally about 65 to 70 degrees down there in that sink, and your body is 98 degrees. Your body is tropical, very tropical. It's very warm weather in there. And that's why you need the saturates, because otherwise your cell membranes are too floppy and they kind of break, whereas the saturated fats are so much more stable at that temperature. So where was I? Okay, so in 1890 they developed a stainless steel roller press, and the first seed they pressed was cottonseed because it was a waste product. They had a lot of it. They didn't know what to do with it, and so they started milling the cottonseed and getting this oil out, and then they adulterated the olive oil. They were actually shipping olive oil to Europe with cottonseed oil in it. So this was the first real food adulteration. And the other problem with cottonseed oil is it actually has a toxin in it called gossypol. And some people believe that the rise in heart disease and cancer that characterizes the 1900s, that's what started it, the cottonseed oil, which was rancid and had gossypol in it. Well, then they started doing this to corn oil. Remember corn oil, margarine, and sunflower seed and safflower seed, and finally soybeans, and then canola. So each one of these has different characteristics. The canola is got a lot of omega-3 in it, about 10% omega-3, and that's the most fragile of the oils. So canola is really full of breakdown products. Soybeans they also have quite a bit of omega-3. So, but meanwhile, back at the ranch, they thought, well, we've got this cottonseed oil, but you can't spread it like butter or lard. So Procter and Gamble invented a process to make the cottonseed oil hard, and was called partial hydrogenation. And at first, they used it for candles. They made candles out of partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil. But electricity came along, and there wasn't big market for candles, so they thought, well, what can we do with this stuff? Well, let's feed it to people. So they came up with Crisco, which means crystallized cottonseed oil, and they started this huge advertising campaign to convince the American housewife that if she used Crisco instead of lard, her house would be cleaner, it would smell better, she was more modern, her foods would be easier to digest, and her children would grow up with better character. if they use Crisco instead of lard. So they knew how to push all the buttons. And that's when Americans started eating this totally phony synthetic food, margarine. And then they got the trans fats, the partially hydrogenated fats out of the food supply, but they figured out other ways of hardening these oils. And that's all in what they call spreads today. Not many people use margarine anymore. They do down here in Southern Maryland because it's kind of redneck country. And I still see people buying margarine. I just can't believe it, but.
So we want to avoid the seed oils. We want to avoid margarine.
And spreads, and the spreads.
What about these other oils in the health world that are often touted as being beneficial, like olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil? We have our animal fats, and you've been clear on your stance that we want to include those. Animal fats are good for us. But how do you feel about those other three in the plant world that are often deemed healthy?
Yes. So I distinguish between fruit oils and seed oils. The seed oils are mostly polyunsaturated, very unstable, break down easily. The seed oils, the fruit oils, coconut, palm, and olive, those are fruits, okay? Oily fruits, and it's very easy to squeeze the oil out. They're traditional fats, been in the food supply since the dawn of time, and they're fine. They are mostly monounsaturated, so you've got saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated. Saturated are the most stable. S is for stable, okay? Monounsaturated are still pretty stable. Polyunsaturates are very unstable. So the monounsaturates are fine, but don't overdo, because they actually are associated with weight gain. When you gain weight, the type of fat molecule in your fat cells that increases is monounsaturated. And just say in Europe, for example, southern France, Italy, lots of olive oil. The women tend to gain weight in menopause, quite a bit of weight, and it's just considered normal. I think women should gain weight in menopause, but I don't want to gain that much weight, But anyway, I would say that the fruit oils in moderation. The animal fats, you can eat all you want. They are stable and healthy, and they contain these wonderful vitamins, A, D, and K. The fruit oils, olive, coconut, palm oil, in moderation, and strictly avoid the seed oils.
Talk more to that piece about women gaining weight during menopause. What is actually a healthy amount to gain, and why?
I always say 2 dress sizes. If you can still wear your prom dress when you're 50, you're too thin, and you probably look too thin too. So what happens in menopause is the ovaries stop producing estrogen, and women tend to gain weight in the middle, in the midriff, in the tummy, and you don't want to gain too much weight, but you do want to gain some weight there, because that's your new estrogen factory. And that's going to keep you stable and keep your skin wrinkle-free and keep you happy. And the other thing that fat produces is stem cells, which you need for repair. And the insurance companies have done a lot of studies about weight, and the ideal weight for women in middle age is not the same as when you're young. And women who've gained a little weight do better at surgery, trauma, accidents, and just avoiding disease, because they have a little stem cell factory now that they're carrying around to help you repair.
What about men as they age? Should they stay the same or gain a little bit?
Yeah, well, I personally, I think men should gain some weight too. I prefer my men cuddly and not too slim, but that's just my preference.
Somebody tuning in, hearing you talk about all this animal fat, saturated fat, and they're fearing the connection there or supposed connection between that and heart disease. Debunk that myth and why people
Yeah.
need to start embracing these fats.
Well, that was created by the vegetable oil industry. So how can we sell this garbage? Because it's garbage. And people were, quite happy eating butter and cooking in lard. That's the way Americans ate since the founding of the country. And everything was, if you fried food, you fried it in tallow because that's the most stable. So they said, well, how can we demonize our competition, which is butter and lard? And butter and lard and animal fats contain two things that you never find in vegetable oils. One is saturated fat, and the other is cholesterol. So they said, oh, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to make people afraid of saturated fat and cholesterol. And that's what they did. They never showed this in, good studies. In fact, heart disease went up as the butter consumption went down and as the consumption of seed oils went up. So, it's right there in our faces. And cholesterol, I mean, to make an enemy out of cholesterol. First thing I think people are always surprised to learn that we make hormones out of cholesterol. We can't make estrogen or testosterone or progesterone or DHEA or any of these wonderful hormones without cholesterol. And I think that's kind of a surprise to people. Our brains are full, concentrated with cholesterol. And we need cholesterol to think right. Cholesterol is the cells lining the intestinal tract are very rich in cholesterol, or at least should be, so that our digestion works right. To make a villain out of cholesterol, it just defies common sense.
Currently, heart disease is killing a lot of people. If it's not saturated fat, what do you think is the driver of that?
Too much sugar is very, very stressful for the heart. And of course, you have all different kinds of heart disease. You have a problem with the heart itself, which is a muscle which loses strength as we get older. And then we have problems with our blood and our blood vessels. You're talking about several different things here. But it's the modern diet. There's no question it's the modern diet.
How do you look at...
And modern medical practices. Yeah.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there. How do you look at somebody trying to form a healthy diet only on plants?
Can't be done. Over the long term, you're going to get very sick. Dr. Price tried to find a healthy population that only ate plant foods, and he had to admit that he didn't.